Trump's new ultimatum for Putin. Why did the US president decide to shorten the deadline so drastically? It used to be 50 days, now it's 10. What will happen if the situation doesn't change after this deadline expires? And how is the Kremlin once again trying to pull the wool over the White House's eyes? Let's figure it out. Putin must cease fire and start real negotiations with Ukraine, at least by August 8. Otherwise, the US will impose new sanctions both against Russia and against countries doing business with the Russian Federation. The head of the White House explained this decision by saying that Moscow had not responded to the previously announced deadline. And Trump called all talk without action pointless. Moreover, every day Putin's army continues to attack peaceful Ukrainian cities.
I've spoken with Putin many times. We got along very well. We talked 5 times, maybe 4. Prime Minister Starmer, you and I have discussed this issue. We thought we had solved it many times. And then Putin comes out and launches missiles at some city, for example, at Kiev, killing many people. I'm very disappointed in Putin. Those 50 days I gave him, I'll cut down to a shorter period, because now I know the answer to the question, what happens next?
This time, the Kremlin responded by saying that they had supposedly taken note of the US president's statement and hinted that Moscow would not back down from the demands it voiced in Istanbul and set out in the so-called memorandum. In turn, Deputy Chairman of the Security Council Dmitry Medvedev began threatening the United States with war and stated that Donald Trump, with his ultimatums, is only bringing it closer. The head of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Lavrov, said that the US president is supposedly under indecent pressure. And as for sanctions, Moscow claims they're not afraid of them. Lavrov also started saying that Russia, for the first time in its history, is fighting a war alone, without a single ally. At the same time, even at the official level, Moscow has admitted that soldiers from North Korea are fighting against the armed forces of Ukraine on the side of the Russian Federation. All these attacks and the Kremlin's silence in response to the 50-day ultimatum seriously angered Trump. He called such a reaction a disgrace. And the US State Department stated that the Russian Federation had misinterpreted Trump's patience regarding the negotiations. But the time for misinterpretations is over.
President Trump has proven that he should be taken seriously because he is a serious person. The issue of sanctions, and even secondary sanctions, is regularly discussed, since some countries are still benefiting from buying Russian oil. The president can do a lot, as can Secretary of State Rubio. He was patient, and some people might have misinterpreted that. And I think the time for misinterpretation is already over.
Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War believe that Putin is unlikely to make any concessions in his military objectives unless he is forced to do so by significant Ukrainian victories on the battlefield. According to them, the Kremlin dictator has gone too far, and another ultimatum from Trump will not stop him.
The inflated expectations that the Kremlin itself has created within Russian society could become a trap for Putin. Even if the West and Kiev agree to negotiations, any solution that does not align with Moscow's maximalist goals will be perceived as a defeat. Any negotiated end to the war that does not achieve all of Putin's goals will cast doubt on the success and even the necessity of Russia's entire military campaign against Ukraine. From the report of the Institute for the Study of War.
However, many experts believe that if Trump really moves from words to action, new sanctions could deal a devastating blow to the Russian economy, with a real possibility of undermining the fiscal and trade stability of the aggressor country. And then Putin will simply have no choice but to negotiate.
Despite the statements of the apologists in Russia, the war is bringing this country to its knees. Signs point to an economic catastrophe in the next 12 to 18 months. Even high-ranking Russian officials are issuing stern warnings. The Minister of Economic Development of the Russian Federation, Maxim Reshetnikov, recently warned that Russia is facing a recession. But the reality is much worse. Although military spending supports the economy in the short term, in reality it is burning through billions of rubles in an ever-growing pit. From a publication by the New York Post.
Trump's main tool is secondary sanctions, aimed not only at Russia, but primarily at the countries buying Russian oil and gas. If these countries continue to import energy resources from the Russian Federation, measures are in place for them, up to 100% tariffs on exports to the US. First and foremost, this will affect China and India. These are precisely the countries that became the main buyers of Russian oil after the start of the full-scale war in Ukraine. The new restrictive measures are intended to force oil refiners to look for other suppliers.
Putin can live under sanctions, he can disregard Russian soldiers, but China, India, and Brazil will have to choose between the American market and helping Putin. I think they will choose the side of the United States.
Meanwhile, U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal from the Democratic Party is calling to speed up the vote on the bill introducing new sanctions against Russia. According to him, there are 85 supporters of the bill in the Senate, and if necessary, they can gather up to 90 votes. At the same time, Blumenthal insists on 500% tariffs. In his words, and I quote, "This is a hammer that will finish off the Kremlin's economy, while 100% measures might only serve as a warning."
Vladimir Putin does not deserve any extra time, and we need to speed up the vote on the sanctions bill. Everything the president is doing is in the right direction. But I strongly advocate for the sanctions to be 500%, not just 100%. Richard Blumenthal, U.S. Senator from the Democratic Party, in a comment to public broadcasters is filmed.
The president of Ukraine also responded to Donald Trump's new deadline. Volodymyr Zelensky thanked the head of the White House for his commitment to ending Russian aggression against Ukraine and emphasized that at this moment, much can change thanks to the power to achieve real peace.
Ukraine delivers on its promises. There is an extremely significant statement from President Trump. And that's true. It is Russia that is doing everything to disrupt peace efforts and prolong this war. Every night there are strikes, constant Russian attempts to inflict pain on Ukraine. Indeed, peace is possible if we act strongly and decisively. And we have said repeatedly, and all our partners know this, that sanctions are a key factor. Russia takes sanctions into account. It considers such losses. Peace is possible through strength.
In the end, until August 8th, Russia essentially has its last chance to show real movement toward a ceasefire. If this does not happen, 100% tariffs from the US will be launched in turbo mode. After that, a jump to 500% is possible. Sanctions pressure on the aggressor, in turn, will also be increased by the European Union. The 19th package will also hit the energy and banking sectors of the aggressor country. For the Kremlin, this is a period of decision, either to enter the world stage as a country ready for dialogue, or to face complete economic isolation and increased military pressure.